liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
You're tapped in, so let's get right to it. Okay, so Zimbabwe has decided to go the way of the AES, the Sahel countries, or the Sahel states, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Now, what I mean by that is Zimbabwe has officially banned raw lithium ore exports in December 2022, then announced a further ban on lithium concentrate exports set to begin January 2027. Now, meant to force miners to build local refining capacity. But in February of 2026, the government accelerated that timeline and imposed an immediate ban on all raw earth mineral and lithium concentrate exports, citing unprecedented and unacceptable extraction of raw lithium ore, as well as massive exports and stockpiling ahead of the 2027 deadline. All right, and reports that substantial quantities of their lithium, Zimbabwe's lithium, have been illicitly stockpiled in a neighboring country. Imagine that. So who's the culprit? China. All right, now China, and I think Africans and people here, Black Americans as well, are starting to figure out that China is not the friend they project themselves to be to the African and or Black American. We receive and check out reports every day about China's behavior towards Africans, their children especially, as well as those who work for Chinese mining companies that are stationed on the continent of Africa. The behavior and treatment directed towards the workers from these Chinese foremen or supervisor managers is appalling, to say the least. So Africa is figuring out that China's not the friend that they portray themselves to be, and that's good. About time, it's high time Africa figured that out. The only thing is that I think the thing is that Africa just failed to realize initially was China, like everyone else, looks at Africa as a continent that has something it wants. Well, more like something it needs. All right. So that's good that they've figured out that, okay, you know what, we got to stop this, shut this thing down, and let's do it quick, fast, and in a hurry. So there, as far as China go, there isn't any good evidence in current reporting of European countries being the ones also or having a hand in plundering ahead of the deadline. But the dominant foreign actors in this is first and foremost China, with the United States in a close second. They also are located there, and they also mine for lithium ore in Zimbabwe. Now, that being said, the country that is being blamed the most for the plundering is China, and they're doing it ahead of the deadline. But the dominant factor or the dominant foreign actor is China, no doubt about that, as both buyer and as owner of the mining operations themselves. Now, listen, that being said, again, kudos to Zimbabwe for understanding that, okay, wait a minute, there is pillaging going on. There's stockpiling. There is also an illicit stockpiling of this raw earth mineral of lithium is done illegally. We think it's illicitly done. And it is being done as a means to get as much as they can, China, from Zimbabwe before January of 2027. And Zimbabwe said, okay, we've had enough, China. We're going to stop this. We're going to impose the ban right now. And that's what they did. Now, there are other African countries doing the same thing as we see or as we understand is happening in Zimbabwe. All right. Again, if you really want to point at where this thing first started, you would have to point to the AES, the Sahel states of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, by kicking out not just the French government and military, but also the French mining companies and taking ownership of these companies and mining the ore themselves, and in the process of building, erecting, and establishing their own refining facilities. They want to refine their own stuff, process it, that makes a whole lot of sense, because then at that stage, at that point, once they mine it, refine it, then they can sell it at the price that goes at the price that, you know, set around the world. They win. It's a win-win. So now you have Namibia, banned export of unprocessed lithium, cobalt, manganese, graphite, and rare earths. That was back in 2023. You have Nigeria, banned raw ore exports in 2022, explicitly to end what its minister called plundering of the continent for raw materials. Ghana, 2023, green minerals policy, banning raw lithium and green mineral exports. The DRC, surprised that they're in there based upon the fact there's a warfare going there. And it seems that European countries, as much as the United States, are making sure that they keep enough guns and bombs and bullets to keep fighting each other and distracted, while all the while they are mining and pillaging, plundering their natural resources. But to hear that the DRC is in this as well, it's quite stunning to me, I have to admit. But the intermittent cobalt copper export restrictions, plus a 2025 4-month cobalt export ban is in place in the DRC. All right, good. Mali, Tanzania, Malawi added restrictions or bans on raw mineral exports in the last 2 years. Botswana and Kenya also moving forward local beneficiation requirements. So far, 13 African countries have introduced export restrictions, bans, or beneficiation requirements, and roughly 70% of global cobalt and manganese exports were subject to at least one export restriction between 2022 and 2024. All right. And this is one caveat that's worth flagging. Analysis note, this trend risks diluting its own leverage. A processing requirement from a dominant producer like the DRC carries real weight, but one from a country with a small global market share can just be bypassed by buyers sourcing elsewhere. And no matter how you look at it, I think it's still effective for that country that is imposing these bans and restrictions. Hey, do what you need to do to protect your resources and to make sure that if they are being mined, those resources, then you also are in the position to refine as well as process that raw material so you can sell it as you see fit. All right. Now, as a part of this, I do have a clip to give us greater context in terms of what it is that Zimbabwe has done and why it's done it. All right. So before I get to that, as always, please like, share, follow, comment, and subscribe. You are tapped in. This is the Art of Political Discourse. We appreciate your presence. Hit that like and share button. Help us to get them numbers up, and subscribe to this channel if you will. All right, let's get to this. All right.
Has taken swift measures banning the export of raw materials, including lithium, which is vital for the global automobile and energy industries. The government of Emerson Mnangagwa says its ban on exports of all raw minerals aims to end the foreign scramble for them, encourage local refining, and ultimately boost the economy. The export ban had originally been scheduled to start in January 2027, but the government says it has fast-tracked it, taking effect immediately. According to the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Nick Mangwana, this is because the government has noticed an unprecedented and unacceptable scramble by foreign companies exporting rare earth minerals ahead of the January 2027 deadline.
Now, those countries, again, are the main culprit is China. Come to find out, China was illicitly stockpiling this stuff in a neighboring country in Africa, trying to beat the deadline, January 2027. So trying to extract and mine as much lithium as it possibly could in the hopes of not being detected, you know, being caught cheating. All right. Now they were caught, and wisely, Zimbabwe has decided to fast track the 2027 ban and implement it immediately, which is what they've done. Now, and as far as that hoarded ore, lithium ore that's stashed away in a neighboring country, I wonder if Zimbabwe has laid claim to it and went to claim it and take possession of it. That would be an interesting story to find out whether or not that's the case, and I'll look into that. That would be something to do a piece on.
Securing access to rare earths and other strategic minerals has become a global priority for major economies, including the US and China, given their importance in the production of batteries, green energy systems, military equipment, and many other goods.
Government says the ban on the export of mineral ores is meant to prevent the plunder of the country's natural resources following unprecedented and unacceptable extraction of raw lithium, as well as massive exports and stockpiling ahead of the 2027 deadline. Responding to a question at a post-cabinet media briefing in Harare today, Mines and Mining Development Minister Dr. Polite Kambamura said President Mnangagwa took the decisive stance to stop the natural resources hemorrhage.
The Ministry of Mines and Mining Development of Zimbabwe has announced this move while tightening state control over resources that are critical to global clean energy and defense industries. The ban covers all raw minerals already in transit and remains in place until further notice. The move also aligns with the global trend as nations scramble to secure rare earths and other strategic minerals which are essential for smartphones, green energy systems, and military equipment too. Producer nations are also tightening supply chains to secure resources. Zimbabwe aims to ensure transparency in country value addition and beneficiation in mineral exports. The ban on lithium concentrates, originally scheduled for January 2027, was set to force mining companies to process lithium locally instead of exporting semi-processed ore. Zimbabwe currently holds Africa's largest lithium reserves and ships much of its output to China for refining. Mining accounts for roughly 14.3% to Zimbabwe's GDP, which underscores the sector's role in the country's economy at large.
Through various economic
So yeah, what I get is rather than China build these refining plants or processing plants there in Zimbabwe, they decided no, because I think China looks at it in terms of economics. Okay, we build the refining or processing plants for lithium there, then that means, yes, Zimbabwe could probably keep more of the proceeds or the profit. And that's something, as well as meant out to China how much of that processed or refined or lithium ore they can take or keep for themselves. So China's looking at it like that. China said, nah, you know what? We'll mine it and we're going to go on about our business. You know, you guys, you want to build a refining plant, a processing plant, be our guest, go right ahead. You know, it remains to be seen how this thing is going to work out. And I'm pretty sure China's not too happy. Can't be. China, part of what it is about, its products need lithium, you know, requires that they have lithium. And the same thing goes for the United States. So yeah, how this thing plays out is I'm telling you, it has me captive in terms of my imagination, what's going to happen as opposed to what won't happen. Remains to be seen. But good move again for Zimbabwe to do this.
Blueprints, including the National Development Strategy 2, government has demonstrated commitment to the...
Okay, because I don't like the volume of that, the sound of it.
I want to invite you to a free trading and investing workshop right here in Woodland Hills.
Smartphones and advanced industrialized nation.
We get to leverage, disrupts
that were now being done.
It caused market shocks.
It dents investor confidence. It disrupts the supply chain. It disrupts the market, and it may actually then derail the short-term gains that could be gained from, you know, a plan, a well-faced plan in terms of ensuring that we get to leverage, you know, the rising prices in lithium.
Zimbabwe's government is betting that short-term pain will translate into long-term industrial gains.
What if one decision by a single African nation could reshape the future of the global mining industry?
Yeah.
For decades, Africa has supplied the world with...
And that's our statement. That's where we stand in terms of our thought process regarding Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, making the decision to create their own wealth, to be independent of foreign influence and investment. And we thought back then, as we think today, the move they made set a precedent, and it pretty much got this ball to rolling in other countries where they begin to think that, hey, let's do our own thing. These are our resources. Let's mine them. Let's refine and process them, and then let us put them on the market and, allow our countries, our people to benefit from their natural resources. So yeah, that is something to behold, what we see taking place in Africa.
With the raw materials that power modern economies. From lithium used in electric vehicle batteries to platinum, chrome, nickel, and rare minerals essential for advanced technologies, the continent has exported vast quantities of natural resources to industrialized nations. Yet despite its extraordinary mineral wealth, much of Africa has earned only a fraction of the final value created from these resources.
And I see that is the statement most African countries are making now. That jig is up. That game is over. And these African nations, they look to make sure that they are just as beneficiaries of the mining process, the whole process, mind you, than just parts of it. So they stand to gain greater, not just access to what, is under their feet, their resources, but access to the world market and without a middleman. So again, that's a good move for Africa.
That may now be changing. Zimbabwe has announced one of the boldest resource policy decisions in its recent history. The government says it will ban the export of all raw minerals, effectively freezing shipments of unprocessed critical minerals as part of a sweeping strategy to promote domestic value addition. Instead of exporting raw ores to be processed abroad, Zimbabwe wants those minerals refined, processed, and transformed into higher value products within its own borders. If fully implemented, this policy could mark a major turning point not just for Zimbabwe, but for Africa's broader approach to managing its vast natural resources. Hello and welcome. This is...
Okay, so there you go. And again, I think this is what we're seeing take place in African countries. The decision is being made, or they are making the decision to be masters of their own destiny, to not only that, but control their own resources. And as a result of that, it can't help but improve, the country as well as the people. So again, kudos to Africa for deciding that this is what they need to do, and they are taking those steps to do exactly that. You can't ask for much more right now or at this stage. This is at the early stage of these transitions that are taking place. What media would call trends, we tend to want to call them or label them transitions to something better. So look for this to continue to happen in Africa, where countries are going to step up and step out and say, you know what, rather than allow foreign mining corporations into our country to extract our natural resources, then import them or, export them to their home country, refine them, process it, and then turn around and sell it back to us. We'll stop this practice. We'll stop it. It's going to stop. So we're going to see more of that happening. And again, I'm glad and happy for those countries on the continent of Africa that are taking this bold step to be its own master and, its own captain, navigating, its way through it, the process of being a part of the world as well as the world market. Hey, kudos to them guys. Lithium is needed, and hopefully they'll do everything they can to understand the value of it and other resources, especially rare earth minerals. Let's hope that Africa, the leaders in those countries, continue to do what's best for that country and its people. So again, hey, we're happy for Zimbabwe. We're happy for all those African countries that have decided to be independent of foreign investors as well as foreign powers. in regards or in concern with or considering their natural resources. Let us know what you think about this piece. Is this something that we are going to see that out? Well, some outlets call it a trend. What we see occurring, we tend to think it is more than a trend. We tend to think that there's this shift occurring on the continent of Africa, and as where African nations are beginning to say, no, this is what we'd rather do, instead of doing what you want us to do and taking control over their own destiny. That is something we see happening. We don't call it a trend. We call it a transition, a shift in economic as well as political ownership and independence on the continent of Africa. So again, kudos to those countries and their leaders. May they fare well in this process. Let us know what you think about this piece and whether or not this is something we're going to see a lot more of on the continent of Africa. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Right.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.